All right, this is episode 16 of the Homestead Shop Talk with just two of us today. So Al texted us earlier today and he's not feeling good. He's feeling a little bit under the weather. So me and Ben decided to still do the podcast this week, and it's just going to be me and him. So hopefully, I know, he'll get better this week, and Al will join us back up next week.
Yeah, feel better, Al.
Yeah, Al, feel better. And so since it's just me and Ben, two guys from California who left, we figured we'd do the topic on the culture shock of moving out of California.
It should be fun.
I know. I think both of us get this question quite a bit. So we're going to dive into that a little bit later. But first, we're going to talk about our week. You want to go ahead first,
Ben? I can go first because it's pretty short, actually. So if you listened to last week's episode, you'll know my mother-in-law came out to visit, and she stayed with us for a week. So I spent a lot of the week just sitting in here in my chair in the living room, just talking and hanging out. We didn't really, go do touristy stuff. It was just a visit. Me and Meg sitting talking about it. I don't think we have spent that much time with her mom in probably a decade. Like, it's been a long time since we hung around Meg's mom like that. So we
that's great.
Got caught up on stuff. We talked about everything there was to talk about, and it was good. It was real nice getting to see her. Like I said, it's been a long time since we, had that kind of quality time. Usually, like the last time we saw her, she came out because Meg's grandpa, he knew he was going to pass away, and so he had it in his head. He wanted to come see us one last time. He wanted to meet Buggy, and so he pretty much said, "No, you're taking me out to Ben and Meg's. I want to see their place now. I want to see the baby." And so they put him on a plane and flew him out here. And given the circumstances,
nice.
Meg's mom was a little bit stressed that trip, but this trip was a lot better. It was nice. Other than that, business as usual. We are shutting down the garden. We are ready to head into fall. I will say I got my lift kit for my golf cart, and I installed my lift kit. That thing's a beast now. I can climb all sorts of stuff. I think what's funny, I put the lift kit on. Yeah, it's like a little baby monster truck. I can climb over stuff easier, and I've got ground clearance, so I'm not worried about high centering the thing. But now it's up so high, I'm worried about rolling it on the hills. So I don't know. I guess. Can't have it both ways. Can't have ground clearance and stability. So it's all good. I like it. The ground clearance is really what I wanted. So yeah, other than that, that's not a whole lot to report. Kind of a chill week. Had our first frost this past couple days, this past weekend, and I got up, I think that was Sunday morning, and looked out, and there's frost on the roof of the farmhouse. And I was like, "Ooh, we got our first frost. Woohoo!" It's about a week early.
Yeah, it felt like Christmas.
Yeah.
It felt like Christmas for a moment.
Almost.
Well, I think there's something to be said, when family comes out, after not seeing them for a while, like we feel the same way too. Like you feel like there's more, I don't know maybe because you haven't seen them for a long time, there's more quality time, and you're just like kind of just in the moment. As before, maybe like for us, I think maybe kind of take it for granted that, mom just lived on the next street, and now it's not like that anymore. Yep. So I think it's kind of neat when we do get together in that way. But so this week we butchered our turkeys. We butchered 6 turkeys, our white turkeys, and comparing the white turkeys, and now these are just the Cornish cross of turkeys, to our last year's turkeys, which were heritage breed turkeys. You're talking, I had to look at my old video that I did so I could compare the pounds, but like the biggest one that we just did was 19 pounds.
Ooh, big boy.
And last year the biggest turkey was I think it was 15. No. Yeah, I think it was like 13 pounds. But on average, the rest of them were like 8.
Wow.
So, so definitely the white turkeys were a lot bigger, and we butchered them about the same many weeks, which we knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to compare that.
Now that you've done both, is there a difference in feed consumption versus the heritage breed, or do they just eat like a pig?
Well, I think the white ones do eat a lot more because those are the Cornish cross of turkeys.
Yeah.
So, Cornish crosses, they eat a ton. The heritage ones, I notice they graze a little bit more. Like they'll go after the bugs. Like we still have some heritage ones right now. I noticed when I move the coop and I feed them at the same time, they're not eating the feed right away. They're going after the bugs because we have a lot of crickets, and so they're like really quick. They'll go after that, and then they'll go into the feed. But with the other ones, they'll go straight to the feed. The white ones, and eat the feed first, and then go after the bugs.
So they really are like the Cornish cross.
Yeah, they're just a fast-growing bird. So definitely they eat a lot more. That's why we wanted to butcher them right now, because I was like, we should butcher them. Well, I haven't put this video out yet, but I might put it out by the time our podcast goes out. But I went to I went to visit another farm, a local farm that I did a video on. Sometimes I like to go out and visit another farm and just do a video, kind of like a farm tour kind of video.
Yeah.
Just to kind of change things up for me, and just to maybe promote another farm that's local. Usually they're local, and just to kind of talk about what they're doing. So pretty cool stuff that this guy's doing. He's pasture raised. I found it interesting that this farm, they just started out, but they're doing all organic feed for all their animals, which is pretty rare, I think.
Yeah.
For
it's
a farm,
expensive
when you're selling stuff. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So hopefully I'm going to put out that video this week. All right, let's just get into the topic of being a culture shock or not, leaving California. And I mean, I think what you can imagine, yeah, in many ways, I think it was.
So I don't know. I go back and forth. We've had quite a lot of people ask that question. It's like, so was it culture shock? And yes and no. There's like two sides to that. So when I explain to people where we're from, we were from Kern County, very conservative county. Rednecks come from Kern County. I mean, it just, I got to say it like it is. Like, I'm pretty sure the lifted truck was invented in our hometown. Like, it's just, that's how it was. Like, we had the what was it, a 3rd mile dirt track, racetrack, the Okie Bowl's what they called it. I mean, it was just like, coming out here, I realized that I grew up in the most southern type town I think is in all of California. In a weird way, where we live now, honestly, it feels like I went back in time. It feels like I'm living in the 90s out here. So culture shock, maybe, but I like it. Like, life is so much slower out here. People aren't as concerned with the fast life out here. Now, mind you, like, there is the hustle going on out here, just like anywhere. People gotta work to eat, and that's the same way anywhere you go. But yeah, as far as culture shock, I don't know. I tell closer friends, it's like, you know what, being out here reminds me of when I was a kid growing up. I feel like I went back in time to like the 90s or something like that. Like, there's some things that are like the 90s, but then there's some things that are, very modern, very, kind of what we left. But yeah, generally we really, really enjoyed out here because it's a slower paced life. We kind of have the country life where we're at. And it's definitely different than city life. I don't know. There's so much with that. It's like culture shock. I don't know. We completely changed
Yeah,
what
it's not
we were
necessarily a
doing.
bad thing. I'm not,
Yeah, yeah.
I had people before we left tell me that we're gonna hate it because it was so slow. Like it's so much slower
Same thing.
way
Yeah.
of living, slower paced, and they're like, "Oh, you're gonna hate it. You're not gonna like it because you're used to fast paced." And I guess at first it was a little like, I mean, it's still like that. I feel like people are like slower talking, like they're kind of on their own time. Uh, which I guess we're kind of used to now. But sometimes I'm like, I'm trying to get something done, or I want to be fast about something, and it's just not going to happen that way.
I'm with you there. There have been some things that, it just takes forever because for one, um, there's a lot of how to say this. Like I've made a lot of friends out here, and I don't want to like say something to insult any of my friends, but there's like because it's a slower way of life out here, there's been some places I've gone, like different mechanic shops and stuff like that, and they're just not in a hurry. They're they're not worried about getting stuff done super super quick. And it's nothing against them. It's just that's just the way they've always done it. It's the way their dad did it, and that's the way they're doing it. So I don't know, that I guess would have,
Yeah.
I'd classify that as culture shock. But at the same time, it's cool. I have made friends with people in every industry I've interacted with because people are just they'll sit and talk to you. Like you can sit and talk for half an hour with, like when I went and picked up the truck from the mechanic last year, and I sat and talked to him for an hour. He wanted to know about what are we doing from California, why did we move here, and all that good stuff. You just didn't get that in California. It was like, here's your stuff, get on, go on, get.
That's like I sold last year. I sold our one of our lawnmowers, and the guy that I met, he was like born and raised in the area, and we ended up out there talking for like 2 hours. He did buy the lawnmower, but we were talking for 2 hours. Come to find out, he's like a mechanic and he has his own shop, and he's just like, he knows about what we're doing, and I know about him now. Now we exchange numbers. I've texted him since then. So I mean, that was pretty cool. Like he was just like, "Hey, text me if you have any questions about the area." So I thought that was pretty neat. The one thing that I did notice moving out here, now we've been here 7 years, was the Southern hospitality.
Oh, that's a thing for sure.
That was kind of, oh yeah, like having neighbors that, like even our old place, the first 10 minutes we pulled up to our new place. This is when we very first, in 2016, when we first moved. The minute we pulled up to our driveway, we just came from California. 10 minutes, we haven't even barely got out of the car, and our neighbor comes up right behind me. I didn't know she was my neighbor at the time. I thought, who is this lady? Like, I didn't know who this lady was. Like, she like flew and like pulled up right behind me, and I was like, oh no, here we go. Like who's this? Someone's gonna start trouble, And but she's like, hey, I'm just your neighbor. I was like, I just saw you pull up, and I just want to say hi. Like, I know you guys just bought this place.
That's cool.
And I just want to introduce myself. And I'm like, so like prior we hadn't moved, the place was sitting there for like 6 months before we actually moved in. So she was like, I've been looking at your place, I make sure like nobody was messing with it, because I know you somebody had bought it, so I was like, wow, that's amazing,
That's cool.
you know?
That's really cool.
And then like when we moved to our new place, like our neighbors, the first night we stayed here, they brought us like a 4-course meal, like homemade, like Southern meal with sweet tea. Like they just brought it over. We didn't never really met them. They just were like, "Hey, we made a dinner for you guys." Like
That's really cool. Those are
that's
good
amazing.
neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been blessed with good neighbors, and that was a concern for us. Moving to a new place, of like who's gonna be our neighbors, and hopefully they're cool. And they're not the only ones. I mean, they're everyone's just so helpful and welcoming. Um, did have you ever felt like
Like an
not
outsider.
welcome? Yeah, like, oh, you're from California. What are you doing here? Like you're not supposed to be here.
You know what? Not a once. Coming to the South, it has been nothing but just true Southern hospitality. People have always made us feel welcome, made me feel welcome. I will say, sorry, Idaho, but Idaho was the only place I ever got treated badly for being from California. I think that's why we decided not to
Oh,
move to Idaho. Out here,
oh man.
man, out here, people are so kind. People are still, I mean, just like decent human beings. Like it's, I think that was, you know what? It's funny. I haven't really told this story on YouTube, but when we were coming through North Carolina, we were still on our road trip, and we had went out to visit the Fit Farmer. We went and we had dinner with them, Mike and Lacey, and we left. And on the way back, I think we were staying about an hour away, and so we had a little bit of a drive, and so we're driving through, city, don't know the area. Well, I had a headlight that had went out, and I got pulled over. And, all I ever knew at that point was my interactions I had, one or two or three times with California Highway Patrol. Well, this guy was a highway patrol for the state trooper, I think is what they call him out here. This guy was the nicest guy. He, same thing. He's like, "Hey, you from California?" I was like, "Yeah." "What are you doing out here?" I was like, "Well, we're kind of on vacation. We're thinking about moving." And it was just like the most awesome interaction, and it left such a good impression. It was like, man, maybe I'll meet a few more cops out here, but if that's how the cops are out here, man, I'm sold.
Yeah.
Like I literally thought about that when we were deciding on which state, and I was like, well, I know the cops in North Carolina are pretty cool, so yeah. It's kind of a funny story.
Yeah. No, for sure. Like, yeah, I've never felt I'm the same way. Like everybody's been so welcoming, and as far as like the transition of moving out here, that had made it so much easier.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And that's, you worry about that stuff, because you hear stories of like, oh, they're not going to like Californians. I've never experienced that at all. Like everyone's been so welcoming and nice and incredible. Like it's amazing. Or they wave hi to you, driving down the road.
Oh yeah, yeah. Anywhere you go, people are waving at you. You get the country, couple fingers over the steering wheel. It's like, did you know them? No, but they waved, so I waved back.
I know. I know. I'm the weird one because I'm like, what? Why are they waving at me? What's wrong?
I've had to change how I drive. Like I have to make sure I keep one hand on the top of the steering wheel, so if someone waves at me, I can wave back, and they're not gonna think I'm a jerk.
Yeah, it's like you got to be ready with the wave.
Yep.
You got to be already ready, like up. I guess I don't know if culture shock. I think the weather. I don't think we were. We were. I think the weather is just not what we expect. I mean, I guess we knew it had the 4 seasons, but as far as like how really was it, I feel like the clothes that we had with us weren't cold for the cold.
Yeah.
Like we weren't ready for that. Even though we don't get that much, we don't, it's not like Minnesota, but for us, it was
Oh,
cold.
yeah. Coming from Southern California to out here where you have 4 seasons, man, like our first winter here, it was brutal. Like it didn't matter. We had to go buy clothes because these wimpy California cold clothes that we had, they just weren't cutting it.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is like real cold compared to Southern California. I can't change it. I got that California blood in me.
Yeah. I still had clothes that I, would, like my jacket that I wore to the office, that was not going to cut it anymore.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's on the weather, like, man, I think one of the things that helped me decide was when we came through and we were still trying to decide, talking to Justin Rhodes, he was like, this is a temperate rainforest. It rains a lot here. And it was all I could think was threaten me with a good time. Like, it only rains just for like just a couple months here and there in California. Like, you mean it rains all summer? I think that has been the hardest thing to get used to, is it rains in the summertime. That's like a mind-blowing experience. It's miserable hot, and it's just like, oh yeah, it's summertime. It's miserable hot in the summertime. And then it clouds up and you have a thunderstorm and it's 70 degrees the rest of the day. It's like, where are we? Like, I didn't know a place like this existed.
Yeah. It might as well be in the Amazon forest we live in,
I better quit talking so good about North Carolina. There's going to be a whole lot of Californians that are going to want to move out here.
I know. We're probably not helping that at all.
But let me ask you this. How do you feel now that you've been here for, quite a few years? How do you feel thinking like a local? How do you think about Californians moving here?
It's not like we could be like, nah, I don't like Californians moving out here. Well, wait a minute. I'm from California. I think the big thing is like, that you hear, as long as you guys don't bring your laws over here, trying to make this state into where you just left.
Yep.
And I agree with that.
Yep.
I agree with that. So as long as people are cool, man.
Don't do what you guys are doing to Texas. Don't move out here and start changing everything. Just come out here and enjoy the way it is.
Yeah, exactly. I have met a lot of people from Los Angeles out here, especially in the Asheville area. Because, Asheville is like a different world compared to anywhere else in North Carolina.
Yeah, that's the truth.
And it's almost like a tiny Los Angeles. And I think that's what what drew us there.
Yep. I think the same thing that drew us, like, Asheville got our attention. Not for the weirdness part, but like the food scene. Like, you could find some really amazing food up in Asheville. But honestly, the way I would describe Asheville is kind of like San Francisco. Like a amazing food scene. Like, you can find if you have any dietary restrictions, you can find a place that caters to you. But at the same time, I think Asheville was just too weird for us. We are suited to the small town life. I like the small town. It's calm, it's quiet. But you are right. Asheville is totally different from the rest of the state.
The one thing that I noticed was just the diversity in people as you go more rural. As far as, I know you mentioned where you were at in Kern, but like from where I was about an hour outside of LA, and there was just so many diversity there,
Yeah.
All people from all ethnicities. It was, that's the way it is.
Yeah, melting pot.
Coming out here, there's less of that. Yeah. And that's, I think, what makes the area great, the area good, like the area awesome where I grew up at. But when you come out here, there's a lot less of that. And like you mentioned, the food, as you go more rural, there's a lot less of the diversity in food.
Yeah.
And I guess that was kind of a culture shock. I would say the people and the food as you went more rural.
I would say if I had one regret about leaving California, it would be that I still have yet to find really good Mexican food. Like, we had all of our favorite spots in town, out back in California.
Yeah.
And coming out here, like, I can't find that, like, authentic Southern California cuisine that I grew up on and love. So that, maybe, yeah, I can deal with it. We've gotten really good at making our own tacos now. Especially doing what we're doing.
Oh yeah.
We save a pig head and the tongue and all that, and we're making lengua tacos and cabeza tacos, and we're having to explain to people what it is.
Can't beat that.
Yeah, you can't beat it. Like, it's been, if you can't find it, make it. And we've gotten pretty good at making the things that we can't find anymore.
Do you ever feel at home where you're at? Like, this is home?
Yeah, we've actually talked about that. Yeah, I do feel that I'm home. It's various conversations I've had with people. A lot of people can't understand that, like, we moved out here and we're on our own. We left all of our family back in California, like every single one of them. And, one by one, as they come and visit, they all say the same thing. Like, they understand why we did it and they understand what we have out here. But, I guess I'm old school. I believe that, like, when you get married, like, you should be somewhat on your own. And I don't mean isolated. I don't mean, an island, but cutting out a lot of the noise has actually made, our home life a lot better. I thought it would be hard because it's like, I don't know anybody out here. Are people even going to accept me because, I'm from California or whatever? And people have been so welcoming to us out here. People have been so kind with that Southern hospitality that just the friends that we've made, the relationships we've made, it's like we have family. It's like we're home. We are home. And honestly, it's, I tell people, it's like, they're like, how do you like it? And it's like, I'd do it again. I would do it again. And the people that we've made friends with have just let me know that decision was the right decision, because I have better friends now than I've ever had in my entire life. And, I thought I was leaving all my friends, and I've made more friends. So it's just, yeah, it's been a journey. That's for sure. It's definitely been a journey.
For me, I think Lorraine's different. I think if you ask her, I think she does feel at home. But for me, I don't know. I don't think I still don't feel like home.
You don't feel like you're putting
down
roots?
I feel like it's just, it does and it doesn't. I don't know. I feel like I've just been on a long vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost like I'm just passing through still. Like eventually I'm going to go somewhere else. As much as I love it here.
I understand that. Like, I completely understand that.
And I don't know what that is. I don't know. I don't picture myself ever. I don't know. I don't know if I ever will say, you know what? I feel like home now. I feel like this is it. I don't know if I'll ever feel that way. And maybe it's because I enjoy what I'm doing. So that feels like a vacation. Like, that feels weird that we're making a living doing what we're doing.
Yeah. No, I completely understand that. When we first got here, there's a couple of conversations I had with some people, various friends, that I didn't realize how much of my self-worth I had tied up in a job title. And coming out here and we're doing what we've always wanted to do. And I would say probably for the first 2 years we were here, me and Meg would talk, and it was like, do you feel like someone's going to come in and tell us we can't do this anymore? And yeah. I feel like, someone's going to come in and be like, all right, gig's up, back to work, back to the 9 to 5.
Time's up. Quit. Yeah. Quit playing.
Yep.
Quit playing. Playtime's over. Yeah, that's funny because that's the way I felt like a good 3 or 4 years when we first moved out here. It was like I thought I was kind of paranoid about it, where I thought somebody was going to pull up to our driveway and be like, "Hey, what are you doing? Like, you can't do this. Like, you guys need to go back. You can't be here. Like, what are you doing? Like, you can't just leave your job out here and you're by yourself and doing what you're doing." It was like a real scary feeling. Like, it wasn't like
Yep.
like a thought. It was like a feeling that I had, and I don't feel that way anymore. But and that just me just over time, just keep doing what we're doing, and slowly that was just kind of fading away, that thought. But that's funny because I did have that feeling for a long time, and I
Someone's gonna
wonder
come in and say stop.
if it's like, yeah, and I wonder if it's like doubt, like kind of doubt, like doubting ourselves of like, are we really doing this? Are we really making a living doing what we're doing? Like what we have accomplished, what we really wanted to do, we're actually doing it.
Yep. Yeah, there was a lot of doubt for me, a lot of questioning. Like I said, up until recently, I still told people I was a machinist just because that was my job title. Like, that was what I did. And, it kind of sounds weird. It's like, what do you do? I make YouTube videos and put them on the internet. Like, it just sounds cheesy. Like it doesn't sound like a real thing. And here it is. It's like, okay, so I haven't been employed by an employer since 2018, like the end of 2017. Like, it's a really weird place to find myself.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's so something that I don't want to take for granted,
Yes,
that
I know what you mean.
we're doing what we, and that's what that doubt, I think, can come in and sometimes and just say, hey, what am I doing? Like, we shouldn't be doing this, but I think we have to just keep pushing.
I kind of said something earlier about like the one regret. Do you have any regrets leaving California? Like, it could be anything. It could be like what I said, not being able to find good tacos out here. Do you have any regrets?
No, I don't have regrets. I mean, I guess early on, I didn't realize how hard it would be to work for myself and to be able to pay the bills. And that's something that, I kind of took for granted that, hey, I could just go find a job,
Yeah.
I figured I would go back to an office job. So I figured I'll just go find a job. Like, how hard is it? I'm a person that's willing to work. I'll just find a job. But what I learned quickly is that out here, for some reason, good paying jobs are hard to come by.
Yep.
And if I would have known that, I'm not saying this is a regret, but I think if I would have known that and was more aware of that, I'm almost thinking that we wouldn't even make the move.
Mm-hmm.
Almost me being naive about it, jumped and did it, and then we're here already, and I was like, oh wait, it's so hard to find a job. And I think that's why a lot of people out here work for themselves, and they're doing multiple things because the pay is so little out here.
Yeah,
and I think that's what I didn't understand.
I'm right there with you. We definitely took a leap of faith coming out here. I don't know, like when we decided to move out here, like the plan was, we're going to try to stay out of debt so I don't have to go get a job, because we can live on nothing pretty much. We can live very, very lean. But when I actually started looking for work, I realized where we're at. Like, I'm commuting an hour to 2 hours one way in any direction to find work as a machinist. And that was kind of eye-opening. Like, for a little bit, I felt pretty dumb. It was like, what have I done? Like, that means we can't, make this work. Well, the longer we have been making it work, the more it's like, you know what? If I can stay out of a machine shop, unless it's my own, I'm going to, if I can help it. I will do a lot of things. I will sell vegetables. I will make odds and ends and sell them. Like, I will do anything, rather than, kind of go back to that life. So, I mean, I think we're getting a little off in the weeds here. We were talking about culture shock, but I guess this all goes with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's work. I mean, yeah, because when I first moved out here, this is before we were really doing YouTube. Like, I worked at a furniture shop and I was making like $8 an hour.
Yep.
And I was working like 50 hours a week, and I did that for like 6 months. And at a certain point, I was like, okay, $8 an hour. I'm working like 50 hours a week. This is not why we moved out here. And I thought, if I can't make at least $8 an hour working for myself, doing what I want to do, then we need to just quit now.
Yep.
Then we just need to stop. And that's when I just quit that job, and I was like, I doubled down on the woodworking side of stuff and started concentrating on making things and going to craft shows. And then I started making that. And it was just, it just kind of opened my eyes of like, wait a minute, I don't want to get back into that routine of finding a job and going to go work for somebody. And then I would be back at where I was.
Yeah, right where you were before you left.
And that's what I didn't want.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Right.
that's been one of the things, realizing, I don't want to wind up in the same situation that I was before we left. Never home, always gone, always working. And, even if I had to start working, those 80-hour work weeks that I used to work, if it was here, it would be different, because at least then, the kids could come talk to me during the day, or, I could have all 3 meals at home. I'm going to be spending a lot of time in the barn or whatever, but I think it would still be better.
Yeah, you're here, you're there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the cost of living out here is a lot less than California.
A lot less.
That's what we could say. I mean,
Yeah.
although it's trying to keep up lately.
Well, seeing how much, even just raw land is going for, it's trying to hold a candle to California right now. But I mean, everywhere's expensive. If you are plugged into anything that's going on with the economy right now, you realize like inflation is out of control. I mean, I don't want to really like doom and gloom everything, but I was watching a video and the guy was sharing numbers. Like, with certain numbers, we're actually in a worse spot now than, as Americans, than we were in the Great Depression. And the numbers he shared, it was like, whoa, pretty eye-opening. The way debt and wages and everything are just, in a really bad spot. So yeah, it's not just here that's going up. It's the whole country. It's everything. Our money's just not worth what it used to be.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was shocked when we first moved out here. Gas, I still remember this, because gas was only $1.99 out here.
Yep.
In 2016.
Yep.
I was like, whoa, look at that. I had it, took a picture of it, sent it to my dad.
I did the same
and now,
thing.
It's like $3.50.
Yeah, there was something I had taken a picture of, and you could see there's a gas sign in the background, And I sent it to my dad, and he texts back and he goes, "Where the heck are you that gas?" It was like, I forget where it was, but yeah, it was like $2 a gallon. He's like, "I haven't seen that since, like the 90s. It's been forever." It's like, yep,
Yeah.
That's how it is.
And now it's caught up. It's catching up, I feel, to California prices.
Yeah, from what I've heard, it's going to keep going up too.
A culture shock does not necessarily mean bad. I mean, I think in the end, I'm happy being here and the move that we've made. I mean, there's no regrets here. As hard as it has been, just finding our way and figuring out what that looks like, man, I would do the same all over again.
Amen. I feel the same way. I wish I'd had the courage to do something like this sooner. I had no idea what it would do for me and my family, and me, like the things that I've been able to like address in my own life since moving here. I wish we'd done this sooner. It's been honestly the best thing I've ever done in my life. So yeah, there's your culture shock, is when you realize that the culture you're living in is not beneficial, and it's time to change your own culture.
We're breaking that mold of how, like, my family grew up, and now our daughter's way, night and day.
Yeah. Yep.
And that aspect going forward is going to be a whole lot different than how it was.
So it sounds like we're both on the same page about all that.
I don't think we've talked about it too much together prior, but
yeah,
I think this was a good talk, man.
Yeah, this was a good talk.
I think we'll end it there. Al, if you're listening or watching, I hope you get better, man. And I appreciate everybody listening and watching these, watching us on YouTube, listening to podcasts, whatever you prefer. Thank you guys. We just hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is pretty cool. Amazing, nice. Actually, how quick we did it. So thank you. Hope everyone has an awesome week, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yep. Feel better, Al, and thanks everybody. We'll catch you guys later.